Happy Tuesday. Welcome to a special edition of the Christy Taylor Show. Super excited to have my guest today. I'll have to tell you all how we know each other, but first, the formal introduction, Reverend Dr. Sarita Wilson-Guffin. She is the Director of Spiritual Care at Labana Children's Hospital here in Memphis, Tennessee. She serves as a consultative resource to the greater Memphis community on spiritual care, grief, and pastoral counseling and care. Also, she's known as the spiritual liturgical dancer. You can check out her website, dancetheword.com. I'm talking about my friend, my former radio colleague, Reverend Dr. Sarita Wilson. Hey, Sarita.
Hey, Christy Taylor.
Wow. Of course, your formality, is you're here on business, but can we take it back to Clear Channel, downtown Memphis?
Baby, woo! Back in the day. That's been like almost 20 years ago, Christy. So I don't want to date us, but
I'll just say that, I'm going to go ahead and give us the date because you were actually pregnant with your second child.
I was, and she will be 20 in December. So
wow.
I left in 2001. And so, I was left when I was pregnant with her. So that really puts things in perspective. So we go way back.
We go way back. So for those who want to know, yes, we go way back. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make sure, hey, we've got a guest, Nikki Gates. Greetings to you as well. Super excited to have you here because we are in the month of October. This, of course, is awareness for domestic violence, also breast cancer awareness, quite a few things that really have to deal with women's health. And we're here on a special reason dealing with none other than the 4th annual My Sister's Keepers Summit 2021, which will be a virtual summit. Mm-hmm. And I want to get into that in the upcoming event and who the special guests will be. But first, can we find out, since your radio career, how you became the Reverend Dr. Sarita Wilson?
Listen, I was on a journey even when we were in radio and didn't realize it. So I knew when I left radio that God was calling me to something different. And, I had a ministry already in liturgical dance, but God really used that, Christy, to shift me over into full-time ministry. And I knew back in radio days, I was like, I asked God, I need you to figure out a way to help me integrate all these different gifts that you've given me, all these different skills that you've given me. And that's what he did. So I landed at Methodist Labana Healthcare, and specifically at Labana Children's Hospital as the Director of Spiritual Care. So I've been here now 12 years, if you can believe that. I had a short career in pharmaceutical sales, about 7 years. So that was the connection between leaving radio and coming into healthcare. But God has really grown me and equipped me and called me into this self-care healthcare ministry. And so that's kind of how I got here, going into full-time chaplaincy, and then that led into so many other things.
Wow.
So, yeah.
God has been deeply at work in you. When I started seeing the transition, because throughout that time too, I had left radio, went back to school, and of course, coming back to Memphis in 2014 and beginning to see your transition. I was like, okay. I think it was our second, because I have actually been blessed to be a part of and have a partnership with My Sister's Keepers since the first year. I was still in radio, working at WRBO, and shout out to Katrina Kimball, who always does all things well when it comes to health and wellness, particularly for women and women of color. And she had me, partnering with that, doing interviews, public service announcements. And I remember that I think it was the second year we were at Mississippi Boulevard, and I saw you there. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So, of course, I know you've been actually a partner with them way before the Sisters Keepers. Can we talk about your role? Because it talks about you being a consultative person in the space of grief, self-care, wellness. Can you give us a better understanding of what that means for the greater community?
Absolutely. So one thing that people don't realize is that people think that chaplains only come around in healthcare and in hospitals when someone is transitioning, when there's end of life. And the profession of chaplaincy is so much broader than that. So I am grateful and blessed that I am also a certified grief counselor, and I do a lot of grief counseling. I do a lot of pastoral counseling, family counseling, And in this role as Director of Spiritual Care, Director of Faith and Health for Le Bonheur Children's Hospital, I am grateful and blessed that I do a lot of resilience training. I do a lot of team building. Do a lot of work to boost morale among staff. I do a lot of encouragement. And so this role offers me, it's really full-time ministry, and it's really akin to being the pastor of a hospital. So instead of being the pastor of a church, I'm the pastor of a whole hospital. I not only take care of patients and families, but I take care of staff when they come to work. They come to work with all types of needs and personal concerns. And so my role and the role of my staff is not only to attend to the day-to-day spiritual care needs of patients and families, but also of our associates and colleagues as they come to work every day. So that includes workshops, that includes trainings, and I go out into the community and do a lot of that work as well.
Wow. I love the fact that, that you put it in context, being the pastor of a hospital, and not only for the families and the patients, but for the staff itself. Just give me a little bit of context when it comes to children and all the issues that they're having. Like, what are some of the things that you have to face as a chaplain at Le Bonheur?
So it could range from very minor to extremely major and traumatizing. So take, for instance, a newborn baby is born incompatible with life. And you have a family that has strong faith, be that Christian, Muslim, Hindu, whatever their faith practice is. But they're torn between what the doctors are saying is there's nothing we can do, and we should take this child and do a compassionate withdrawal of support, meaning in layman terms, taking them off life support, versus the family's desires to do everything to keep this child here, So that's one of the roles of chaplain and spiritual care, is to kind of be an advocate for the needs of the family, but also being a bridge between the family and the medical team.
Okay.
It can range, it can be from that extreme to it could be, a child that's been brought in from a shooting and it becomes a big public issue, and kind of navigating the space between visitation and who can come and who can't come, and pastors being involved, outside spiritual care being involved. It could be, the loss of, sometimes when a family is here, people don't realize sometimes that when a child comes to the hospital, that child does not come alone. They come with their whole family context. So you're dealing with a family who may have 3 or 4 other children at home. They may have transportation issues. They may have a difficult time coming to the hospital to see the child because of any type of experiences they've had in the past with, grief or, pain or whatever it may be. So all of those things. And so our role is to journey with those families. So our team of chaplains sees every new family, every new patient within 48 hours of them coming into the hospital until the end. So just as they see their doctors, the chaplain is considered part of the healthcare or the medical team. And they see their chaplain, they see their social worker, they see all of that. So that's a big part of what we do.
That's a beautiful thing. Jerry Williams, one of our other former radio colleagues. Hey, Sarita, thanks for all you do. And she is truly doing a lot here in the city of Memphis and in the region, including creating partnerships. And I want to talk about, of course, we know that you work at a hospital that focuses on children, but as you say, within the context of family, no child can come into the world without a mother. And a mother is a woman. And in many cases, in a city that's predominantly Black, you're oftentimes contending with children and families that are of color. So with that being said, the partnership that you have within the community that targets or focuses on Black women and their health, how has that come about?
So that's a big part of what we do. So, Memphis is predominantly African American. And when you come into the healthcare setting, particularly the hospitals, you find that a lot of times the staff does not look like us. It does not mirror us. And so, as we're in this age of diversity and inclusion, and we talk about all these inequities in healthcare, as we talk about social determinants of health, part of what our role is to make sure that we are addressing some of those social determinants and eliminating as much as possible anything that prevents people from getting equitable and fair and safe healthcare, regardless of color, race, faith, all of those things. So My Sister's Keeper is an initiative that came along particularly for African-American women, initially first within the Methodist healthcare system, because we needed some additional support we needed some additional advocacy. So it was started as a program that was created to elevate the voices of Black women in the Memphis community, to better address some of those inequities, but also first to address some of those inequities within our own healthcare system. So we started out targeting African-American leaders in Methodist Bonheur Healthcare, and then it has morphed into taking care or sharing that wealth of knowledge and empowerment with women in the community.
So in context, My Sister's Keeper was birthed out of Methodist and then has become something that is regional. What are some of the year-round activities My Sister's Keeper does? Because of course we're going to be talking about the upcoming annual summit, but throughout the year, what does My Sister's Keeper do?
So throughout the year, we do a series of kitchen table talks, and those kitchen table talks are designed to be just like talks you would have with your girlfriends or your mom or your sisters, your cousins at your kitchen table, and they focus on mental health and well-being for women of color and for African-American women. So say, for instance, we talk about breast cancer, we talk about different health initiatives, we talk about domestic violence. Last week, we talked about the connection between spirituality and mental health. We talk about so many different health issues, be they mental, physical, or emotional health, that impact us as Black women.
You know, I had a chance to pre-pandemic help moderate one of those kitchen table talks on the campus of Southwest. And I remember being in awe of how many high-level Black women were in the medical field here in Memphis, and just some of the conversations that they were having for us to understand about advocating for our health as women. Can you speak to that particular aspect of advocacy, of self-advocacy?
Yeah, so taking care of ourselves is honestly just knowledge and not knowing some of the things and some of the issues. So for a long time, we just, kind of would go on and say, oh, I'll be fine, I'll be fine, I'll be fine. But we have not taken the time to go to the doctor, to go to the therapist, to address our own physical and mental health needs, because we have carried so many other people, our families, our children, our spouses, our community on our backs for so long. So now is the time for us to advocate for our own health and for each other. And that's part of what My Sister's Keeper is all about, really advocating. We don't know enough about heart disease in Black women. We don't know enough about breast cancer in Black women and the disproportionate rates at which we are impacted and infected. We don't know enough about our mental health needs and our mental health concerns. We don't know enough about it. So this community is designed to, one, advocate and support us so that we know that our health needs don't look like those of white women, don't look like those of Black men. We look very different. We are created very different. Our bodies function very differently. And so for us to know and understand how we function and how we differently, and that there are resources and supports for us out there just as Black women, to better understand who we are and to love ourselves and to care for ourselves better than we can care for other people.
You know, I'm hearing what you're saying about the differences. And of course, some people oftentimes want to put all women, all humanity under one umbrella, but there are some genetic differences that have to be cared for differently. I think about even some of the things that you talked about, how we have carried on our shoulders and our psyches and our spirit entire communities, and sometimes even the world.
Yeah.
What do you find it has been the change? And I'm seeing some generational changes, particularly with Black people and Black women. What are you noticing as you all have been doing this for the last 4 or 5 years?
When you speak about generations, Christy, that's a very interesting. I'm the mother of 2 young women, 25 and 19. And when I look at their perspective on life and on their healthcare, and especially self-care versus mine and versus that of my mother and the generation prior to me, their perspective is very different. We came from generations, and I think you and I are in the same age group. We came from different generations where we didn't talk about it. Right. We didn't, we didn't publicize it. We didn't deal with it. And this generation, when I look at younger women, they want to know, and they refuse to be overworked. They put themselves first. They take care of themselves, and they seem to be much more intentional about not overworking themselves. Whereas we came from a generation where we were trained and taught that we had to work and we had to be 10 times better. And we had to. They don't have to, and they're not doing it. And so one of the things I noticed is that from a generational perspective, they love themselves differently than we did, and they care about themselves differently. And we are kind of stuck in that generation where we are trying to do the whole self-care thing, but we don't quite have it quite right. And we're stuck between what we were taught and what we see now. And we have to all learn how to let go of we have to all learn. What I'm learning is that I have to unlearn some things that my mother and my grandmother may have taught me based out of their knowledge and perspective, but it may not be the best in dealing with what we're dealing with now. And that's
you
the hard thing to let go of.
Cry. Girl, you about to make me cry over here. Okay. That's a kitchen table talk right now. That's a kitchen table talk.
Yeah.
Because we are in the same generation. I'm Generation X, Gen X.
Yeah. Yeah.
The latchkey kid, the one who had to be more self-reliant even than our older boomer family members. And then we have, like you said, the other generations that are like, oh no, we're not going to be the mules of another world generation. That's right. Speaking truth.
Right.
And I'm so grateful to hear. And I applaud and I celebrate and I'll be like, rah, 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 when I see the younger women.
Yes.
Like, no.
They're not.
Cut it off. They're not doing it.
They're not.
Not doing it is like, and when I have these conversations with them, they're confused. Like when they meet people like you and I, who do have a freer spirit, while we even still struggle. It's like, but y'all understand it. Come on out here. I know your daughters have to rah you as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big thing because we're stuck between what mama said and what they're doing. And we're like, what I want to do. And we pull back and forth, but they're right on so many things. I mean, they still are young and they have a lot to learn, but we can learn so much from the next generation. And I think that's been a big learning lesson because we came from a generation where we were raised, do as I say, not as I do. And these girls are like, I'm not going for that. And so we have to learn to learn from people from younger than us, because that wasn't how we were taught. We were taught that the elders had all the wisdom, but these young women have some wisdom that we have to tap into. I'm not saying that we don't have wisdom for them, but we need to learn to tap into some of the things that they are teaching and showing us through their living experiences, while we hold on to the good of what we were taught and what we learned, but recognizing that it wasn't all good for us, and we might have to let some of that stuff go.
In order for us to, number one, survive, and number two, thrive.
Absolutely.
And that's one reason why I have from day one been a strong supporter of My Sister's Keeper, because that has been the thing. Let's open up. Let's have those kitchen table talks. Let's have that open conversation. Let's talk about the fact that intergenerationally that we have been in many, many ways maintaining into the 21st century a lot of survival mindsets from the 1800s that was realistic for that time, and then the early 1900s and the mid 1900s, and yet we are now killing ourselves without any help by maintaining those levels of stress. I like the wellness piece that you talk about, and even grief. And I'm going to be I'm gonna try and be like the younger folk right quick. My mom passed this summer, and you say you are certified in this space, so you already know 4 months in that I am still in the beginning stages of grief.
Absolutely.
In many, many ways, I feel like I'm just waking up to the reality that she's no longer in this dimension and this side, on this side of heaven. But there's so much to that defined me, and that I'm having to redefine myself while honoring her and not sinking into any sort of grief or depression that will keep me from being forward motion. Can you speak to how oftentimes our silence when we're grieving or when we have any form of loss, because it could be the loss of a job, a home, a marriage, a loved one, because I have been trying to be vocal. I've been, like they said, check on your strong friends. Well, I've been trying to check in as the one who was labeled as a strong friend. Can you just kind of speak to that?
Absolutely. First of all, you're right. Grief comes in all different forms. Anything that we lose that is meaningful to us can put us into a space of grief. To grieve literally just means to lose something meaningful or something that you love. And the loss of a mother is real. I lost my mother in 2004, and there are times where I feel like it just happened yesterday.
Wow.
And we as Black women were raised and programmed, really conditioned to not deal with our grief, to silence it, and to keep moving, because for some time, in some periods of life, in some eras, that was all we could do.
Correct.
But we have to learn that grief is natural, grief is normal, grief is biblical. Even Jesus gave us a prime examples of how to grieve. I did a Bible study at a church a couple of weeks ago called "Have You Cried?" And just talking about the fact that Jesus gave us tears for a reason, and that he said he would bottle up all of our tears. So it's okay to cry. It's okay to speak out. It's okay to be vocal. It's okay to still share your mother's name. It's okay to share her legacy. It's okay to keep her spirit alive. And that is part of grief. And that is the part. So in grief, we learn to hold on to the good pieces, although we know that the physical presence or manifestation of that person or thing is no longer there. So finding the pieces where you can hold on and where you can find peace and where you can find solitude and speak. It is okay to speak. It is okay to share that you are human, because to grieve is to be very, very human and to be very, very vulnerable. And we have to allow ourselves that space, and we have to surround ourselves with people who would appreciate and respect that space. There may be times where you want to be silent, but it is okay and very human to be normal. It is very okay to be human in the midst of your grief, and speak when you need to speak, but do not allow yourself to silence your voice. Your voice is very important, and that's what you hold on to keep the memory of those you love and the things you love within you and alive.
Wow. Reverend Dr. Sarita Wilson. Thank you.
Holiday from 112 Union Avenue.
Okay. What you said,
honey.
I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that, personally. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is the type of support that my Sisters Keepers provides year round. And every November, we get together for a very special get together. Let's talk about, yes, such good information. Indeed. So we're coming up on it. Next weekend, the first 2 years, it was in person. Last year, due to the pandemic of 2020, we were the first virtual, and we are going to maintain the virtual status for this year. So can you kind of give us an idea of what happens at a My Sisters Keepers Summit?
Absolutely. So this year it will be November 6th. It is usually the first Saturday in November. And I think one of the benefits of it being virtual is that women from all across the country can join us. And we do things similar to what we've discussed today. We have various workshops that you can do virtually, various local and national presenters that will share on different aspects of mental health, emotional well-being, physical health for all generations. And so there's something for our millennials, there's something for our Gen Xers, and there's something for our boomers, so that everyone can tap in and learn something different about themselves, about their healthcare, and to share with other women who look like you, who think like you, but who may and who live like you, or who may live differently than you, because we come in so many different varieties of lifestyles. But to talk about different aspects of all of those things. And then we have a great keynote this year, which is going to be a big plus. Michelle Williams, formerly of Destiny's Child, will be our keynote, and she will be sharing some things about her own mental and emotional health care that I think will be just a blessing to so many people.
Yeah, she became very vocal about her own mental health. I think it was even while she was trying to date a young man, and she had a moment where she was institutionalized, and even has written a book. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how she has navigated since then. And for many people, I will say this too, from a Black woman's perspective, that all of our successes can never outweigh the weight that weighs upon us. So no matter how successful we are, whatever we have achieved or haven't achieved, that we still have to check in with ourselves and pursue the wholeness. That really has become at this stage of my life in my mid 50s, realizing that the greatest jewel, the crowning jewel of my life is going to be how much peace haven't I been able to tap into. And that has become, even now in this year, finding spaces to be really grateful. So I can anchor myself in peace has really been more than lip service for me. It's really becoming a day by day in the ebbs and flows of all the changes. I mean, we're in a global state of distress with the pandemic and all of the health issues and personal loss, job changes, economic upheaval, civil unrest. So there's a lot that me and my sister friends always talk about that we have to whoa, Nellie, like you said, particularly of us who have not been, as you said, women of a certain age who were conditioned to be silent. But yet the younger generations, the millennials and that Generation Z, they like, no, baby, we're going to let y'all know.
Listen. I tell people, our spirit, souls, and bodies are very interconnected. We cannot separate one from the other. So what impacts us spiritually impacts us emotionally, impacts us physically, and so on. And so we have got to learn how to practice holistic care, holistic health care, and addressing every part of our being and the needs of every part of our being. And that's part of what My Sister's Keeper is. But that's what we as Black women, as sisters, have to do for ourselves and for each other. It's all got to be addressed. Because when one part of us is down, every part of us is down. And
Indeed. And for those who were like, I'm truly loving this conversation and I want more, well, you have an opportunity to participate in the My Sister's Keepers Virtual Summit 2021. And to do that, it's scrolling across the bottom. You can obtain your summit tickets at events.methodisthealth.org/MSK. That's events.methodisthealth.org/MSK. And of course, you can just watch the replay and keep watching it over and over again until you get that right. Or just simple Google. Go to Google, put in My Sister's Keepers Methodist Health, and it will come up. The registration is there, and it's only $25. Only $25. Come on now.
That's it.
That's about, I don't even know if you can get a manicure pedicure for that. Not a good one.
No, not a good one.
Not a good one.
And definitely not a mani and a pedi. You might get one or the other, but you ain't gonna get both.
Right. You barely get a good mani for $25. You hear me?
Right.
So the cost of a decent mani, you can come to the My Sister's Keepers Annual Summit. Michelle Williams is definitely going to be a must here. And Reverend Dr. Sarita Wilson, will you be providing us any inspiration on that day?
This year, I think I will be opening up the program with the invocation. I did present last year, but I think it's good to hear from a variety of other women and other voices. So we do have some guest presenters this year that I think will be a blessing to everyone who registers. So I want to encourage all of my sisters, as I am being your keeper, to tap in and register and get this good knowledge and share this good space of sisterhood, and then invite another sister friend so that we are all collecting this wealth of knowledge and learning and growing and striving and thriving together.
I love it. Thank you so much. Reverend Dr. Sarita Wilson, my homegirl.
Yeah.
From the 112 Union days. And if you ever need me for anything, just let me know.
And likewise, my sister.
Love you.
Love you too.